Everybody, welcome back. As we've all discussed, these cards have not gotten the nerfs that we probably expected, but are the developers still talking about nerfing them? We're going to look at some specific comments that they made and what they might mean, and some borderline speculation on what some of the community thinks associated from Reddit. Also, we're going to be looking at that bundle, the finale bundle that we got, even though you've probably already made the decision not to buy it because same. All right, so let's take a look. If you've been living under a rock, no pun intended, Mr. Ben Brode, but these three cards are still towards the top of the meta, if not at the top of the meta with Thanos. They attempted to nerf Red Skull to address this deck. It didn't really work. It buffed Red Skull. I think anybody who saw that adjustment knew right away that this is not a nerf. So there's been some talk about potentially nerfing other cards associated with this specific archetype. Now, the problem always ends up being, how do you change a card like Shuri? Should you make it so that it plus some power on the next turn? Should you make it only if it plays right the same stop as Shuri, so then it's just rescue? That's the debate here. How do you change this card? And I do have a fundamental problem with how you might ultimately change this card, because then we get into leader territory and a lot of people end up buying these sort of cards, and if you keep doing stuff like that where you just totally destroy a card after people have bought it, it's not going to work very well in the long run for your game. So let's look at what we've got on our friend Reddit, and the specific comment comes from CM Spats Pun. It says, hi, I remember seeing on Twitter, and I'm paraphrasing, that the changes made to Red Skull in the last patch were smaller than those made to the Thanos archetype, in part because Red Skull can be balanced more easily through number tweaks like Zabu and Surfer. Since it's been a couple weeks, is Red Skull now in line for a change, or are y'all happy with the card has been playing since the patch? Glenn Jones, works for Second Dinner, says, the comment you're referencing was discussing the Shuri deck and why we took a softer approach in addition to the metrics being weaker than Thanos'. Glenn says, I'm not happy with the current performance of the Shuri Taskmaster deck, and Red Skull is one of the addressable part of the problem in the short term, so stay tuned. So originally you might read this and some people speculate on this below, oh, they're nerfing Shuri. Maybe, we don't know, but it looks like they're still looking at Red Skull to change him. So when you go down here, and I upvoted this because I do think that, you know, this specific meta is still boring, it's still just sort of plain Jane. So let's see what it looks like on here. Educated Collins, who's a content creator and very wise, immediately says it reads like the changes are only coming to Red Skull, not Shuri, which I would agree with. It definitely seems they don't know how to adjust Shuri without making her hard to play or weak. Feels rough there. And then there's a lot of discussion here about what different people think the card should be like and do. Now, and I think Educated Collins' post here, or comment, is really what is the issue with Second Dinner, is they're probably really struggling on how to adjust a card like that or an archetype like that without really nuking a card. And I would understand how that's a problem. If you go through here, there's a lot of different thoughts about how to adjust it, what you could do, how you properly play Shuri. Some of the posts here, I really like what they're talking about. This is one where it's a reverse approach where you make them 5/9 with a +1 for every spot on the opponent's side of location. Red Skull would be a 5/13 if the opponent has nothing there, but Shuri will only be able to benefit the 9 power. I thought that was pretty interesting, and I liked how that approach was, because I mean, you'll still get a good double, but that's sort of the point of Taskmaster, is that you don't want to lose everything you get out of Taskmaster either. It's like you want them to double to copy the power of the card before you. And if there's a card that's doubling it, okay, fine, then you get more power. So there's counters out there for these type of decks. It still can be Arrow, it still can be Valkyries. You know, obviously they play them behind Cosmos, but you could Cosmo their Taskmaster depending on the priority too. It's possible to be able to do this. Someone has a really good point about that 5/9, and they talk about how 5/9 is the curve for 5-drops, and only 2 eclipse that part, and it's Doc Ock and Red Skull. And I really like this analysis. It talks about most 5-drops are actually very low in terms of raw power. 17 of them are 6 power or less. The curve for 4 drops, another 10 are 7 or 8 power. Then you have Abomination at 9 than the other 2 that they mentioned before. And I actually commented on that one. I said, I think A-Bomb's gonna get a ton more play once High Evolution shows up. But I really like this sort of comment here, and I really like the thought that if you do bring Red Skull down to a 9, and if there's a way, and I'm not sure that you could do this, but if Taskmaster can maybe only be built off of the raw power or the base power of the card that you played previously, but then it's like, okay, well, what about like a Hitmonkey thing? So like Taskmaster, but so you wouldn't combo Taskmaster with Hitmonkey. But it's a great and interesting concept. And this is actually, I liked this person's post as well, where they talk about the thematics behind this, or the lore, where Red Skull's a Nazi or Nazi adjacent, and the idea of multiple characters directly opposing him, keeping him from reaching his full power, makes for a thematic level, and I agree. And then within Snap, his counterpart could sort of be Captain America, who provides +1 to all the other cards at location, while that Red Skull's gaining 1. So I thought that was kind of cool and neat, and I was like, now part of the problem obviously is Red Skull tends to be played later, so it's hard for a player to actually be able to build up against that. But interesting concept nonetheless as far as lore goes. I do like the mention of Hobgoblin with Shuri, because that was something I did back in the day. I did like that play a lot. Somebody again talks about how the best combo or the best adjustment to Shuri is it needs to be in the same lane. Again, I think that could work. It does feel like it's a glorified rescue, but it's something to think about. Now this is to end this part of the video, I do want to show this one. It's a humor post, but it's honestly worth the laughs. Nerfing Shuri isn't the answer. They should bring some of the other 4-cost cards to her level instead. Here's my humble suggestions. The first one, Rescue. On reveal, if you play a card here next turn, +14 power. Moon Girl. On reveal, duplicate your hand. Cards in hand cost 1 less. You no longer have a hand size limit. Rock Slide. On reveal, shuffle 2 rocks into your opponent's hand. These rocks are 1 cost, -10 power. Opponent has to play them next turn before any other card, which is like insane, obviously. White Queen, draw a copy of your opponent's highest card in your hand. That card has +5 power and -2 cost to that card. So it's obviously just playing in the ridiculousness of Shuri and the power that could come from it, but it's actually a good point. It's like, well, yeah, no, these cards make it so that they're sort of equivalent to what Shuri does for other cards. And it's like, oh yeah, White Queen. It's like, well, yeah, that would be, I mean, this one's a little absurd because like, what can you play for 2 cost for -10 power? Now, this might be a great counter to, for that Shuri build, but it's a thought, and then this Moon Girl one is obviously a little silly, but it really, this with the rescue one I was looking at, I was like, no, that's actually like the type of points you gain from Shuri, so why is this so humorous? But I wanted to show it because while it's tongue-in-cheek, it is sort of how the card works. To finish off this video, we do want to talk about this bundle here. I like to cover every bundle that comes across. This is one that we did not have the spreadsheet previously. I can quickly tell you this is exactly the same as the other one before, but we will look at it in the spreadsheet. It just costs twice as much and you get twice as many credit. The bundle I was talking about before, this one where it was the first daily bundle, where it's $5, 625 credits. It was a base pricing value of $7.14. They sold it, like I said, for $5. It's 29.93% saving. Then you come up in here and everything is ×2. Everything. $10, twice the credits for $12.50. Base pricing is twice the amount, and the actual cost is twice the amount, which still gives you the same % discount. So like I mentioned before when I talked about this type of offer, this is built off of the Pro Bundle in-game, which is not it's an okay bundle, but it also includes over 800, 1,000 boosters that you can get to, which do hold some value. I know typically people don't value those, but they do matter. And I think in this situation too, it's like, guys, you can't just take out the boosters and then expect people to pay the same amount, even though booster value isn't that high. I still think that, I wouldn't even pay $5 for 1,200 credits. I've said in a previous video, credits, how many credits do I get per day in the game? Roughly per day, you get 942. I need to get double that for $5. You know what I mean? So 1,800 credits, 2,000 credits, $5. That to me, I'd spend because, okay, this is actually helping me gain a day, and I'll spend $5 on that. Otherwise, forget about it. And even then, that doesn't feel great. $5 for 2,000 credits, the collection levels that you gain there, it's not, you're talking like 20-ish. So I don't think it's all that great. I don't know what you think, but I would not be buying this pass. Think about what you might want to do as far as spending in a better way. We'll see what different sort of offers they come in game in the future. But let me know what your thoughts are. Did you buy it? Let me know what your thoughts are on the Shuri potential or really Red Skull change to that card. And hammer down that like button. Tell your aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews about the channel. We'll see. All right, until next time, I hope you have a wonderful day.